In this video, I'm sharing the permaculture principles used to design for abundance on my half-acre plot in the desert. First, I'll be showing my plans for an abundant food forest. Next, I'll explain how a grain field will help establish self-sufficiency. And finally, I'll discuss how I plan to do this for as cheap as possible. Welcome to Roots of Resilience. This is a permaculture channel dedicated to showing you how I apply the 12 permaculture principles that I've learned, as well as the spiritual knowledge that I've gained over the past 3 decades. If that sounds interesting to you, be sure to stick around and follow my journey as I turn this half acre in the desert into an abundant food forest. So the main food forest that I want to build is designed around a couple main principles. The first principle is to use small and slow solutions. One of the ways I'll be doing this is by implementing planting phases. So I'll be planting the trees first around the outer rim. Then I will be, in the next season, planting the other trees in the inner ring. And then after that, I will be establishing the shrubs on the outer ring and the shrubs on the inner ring, as well as the perennial and annual plants in between. By using planting phases, what we'll be able to do is to lessen the strain on the system and establish a resilient and well thought out food forest. I don't want to plant 30 trees and 50 bushes and hundreds of different vegetables and different flowers and things, only to realize that that takes thousands of gallons of water and other things that I can't support. So I want to start small, start with what's needed to get established first, so that way the other plants can be protected by the cover of the outer ring, as well as their established root systems, so that way they can support the other plants as well. By doing this, I allow for succession planting, a common theme in agroforestry and syntropic agroforestry. Another main principle that I wish to apply is to use the edges and value the marginal. By planting trap crops around the outer edge, what I can do is, for the plants and the animals that come in from the California native species and the animal corridor that I established, if they come in further into the property, I want to give them something that they can get that's easy, but it also keeps them away from the main crops that I want to enjoy for my family. Another way that we'll be using the edges and valuing the marginal is by creating surrounded pathways. So I want this meandering path that goes all the way through this garden, this food forest ecosystem, and just surrounded by abundance. Anywhere that you turn, there's going to be, within arm's reach, 5, 10 different plants that you can grab from. So as you walk through this garden, you'll be first along the outer edge. There will be things to grab there. Move into the first ring, in between the first and second rings. There will be plants all along all those rows. Every single corner, every crack, every crevice, there will be abundance, all the way into the center. So this will create a natural flow of abundance. The third principle that I applied when designing this is obtain a yield. I want to make sure that walking down these aisles is like grocery shopping. So I'll be walking down these aisles, meandering my way down the garden, and there will be multi-layers of different fruits, different vegetables, and I could just go with my basket, pick whatever I want. It's a concept that I picked up from David the Good. He's on YouTube as well. He does really cool videos. He calls it grocery row gardening. So I took that concept and I wanted to apply it in a unique way that fit the space and fit the land here. It's not the traditional layout that he designed, but it takes the principles that he uses in his book and in his YouTube channel, and it applies it in a way that works on this property. Next is the grain field. The grain field will be right over here next to the chicken enclosure. And one of the main principles he used to design that was use and value renewable resources and services. Grains have typically a quick crop rotation, so By planting and taking that crop and planting more, you can get a large production from a relatively small area. Taking the grain to be used for chicken feed, I'm going to be left with a large amount of straw that I can use for mulch, for covering different rows of gardening. I can cover the ground. I can set it out anywhere to act as ground cover. And also, just by the way that plants behave, I'll be taking those seeds and saving a portion of the seed each year, each season, and replanting, so that way I start to develop a variety of seed that is more tailored to this environment. So I'm using the renewable resource of the seed by creating a crop that's better for this area. I'm using the straw, which is renewable, using every part of the plant, basically. Another benefit of this quick crop rotation is that it allows for applying self-regulation and feedback. This is another permaculture principle that I'll be applying to the grain field. So there's multiple different types of grains that I could grow. There's oats, there's wheat, barley, sorghum, flax, corn. I can grow all this different stuff in this little area. And I can really see what works best out here. And I can also see, what do my chickens prefer? What does the flock prefer? What do the birds nearby prefer? And I can start to tailor that in, and I can customize what my land needs in regards to the grain field. Another permaculture principle that was applied was to creatively use and respond to change. Right now, the world is in kind of a topsy-turvy environment. Prices are going up, inflation is hitting a lot of people, and chicken feed is quite expensive. Even for a flock of 10 birds, I'm shelling out close to $50 a month just to feed them, right? And that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're not getting a production level of eggs, that is a lot. Sure, they're higher quality eggs, but I would like to offset that cost. And by being creative with the space that I have, I'm able to respond to that change. There's also the possibility of supply chain uncertainty, right? There's been shortages of different products throughout the past 5 years. There's always been shortages, but the past 5 years we've seen it a lot. Different industries at different times have had their supply chains constricted, and I would like to use my ability here to avoid that. I would also like to potentially have a bigger flock. A bigger flock of birds means I need to feed them more, which only amplifies those problems that I just discussed. So how do I respond to that? Grow your own food, of course. Finally, cost-effective implementation. How am I going to do all of this? One of the ways I'll be doing that for as cheap as possible is, once again, using slow and small solutions. I'll be creating a nursery for the expensive plants. Right here on this deck, I'm going to be filling out this whole area with little potting plants so I can start grafting twigs that I find. I can get cuttings, I can get seeds, I can start expensive plants from seed and let them grow until they're ready to go into the ground. And by utilizing the space that I have as a nursery, I'll be able to do that. Another way that I'll cut down on costs is by producing no waste. That's another permaculture principle. You're starting to get the drift, right? This is a permaculture channel. I'm going to be trying to incorporate these principles as often as possible and reinforce them so that way you can learn along the way as you watch me do this. So by producing no waste, I will be going to, say, the local mall or the local parking lot somewhere that has trees that are overgrown and they're dropping seed pods all on the concrete and they're just getting ground up, crushed by cars, eaten by birds. It's bringing pests to the area. I can do them a service. I could take some seed pods. They're going to get rid of them anyway. So might as well save them from the landfill and take them and begin producing abundance here. Another way I'll be producing no waste is by using that free mulch, say with the straw from the grain field, as well as chop and drop methods from the nitrogen fixing trees in the fruit tree guilds and the food forest. I'll be using that as free mulch. I also have been experimenting with chip drop and I have a large amount of mulch that I'm currently working on spreading. That was very cheap and inexpensive for me to procure, and it was just delivered here, and that's amazing. Now I can spread mulch all over my yard, which is coming up in a future video. Another way is the free fertilizer that the chickens produce. These are great nitrogen sources, and they are great fertilizers. I can also take the eggs and bake them in the oven for a little bit, grind them up, and turn that into usable calcium for the soil. A couple more aspects of the using small and slow solutions. The nursery is going to be cheap and easy to start. The fabric pots, if you get them off of a distributor website, are relatively inexpensive. The little plastic pots, those are super cheap. They can be made out of pretty much anything. I have lots of plastic waste that's lying around that I can turn into little growing containers. I can also create a wide variety of plants with little to no risk. It's out here in a small zone 1 area. This is right outside of my back door. And I can come out here, I can monitor the progress, and with little to no effort, I can make sure that this area is succeeding in the best possible way. In the next video, I'll be doing a site walkthrough and showing you all of the details, showing you the before picture, essentially, of the property, how it is now, and where these designs will be located. I know having the illustrations on the screen is helpful, but it's not necessarily the best for you to get a spatial understanding. It's good for a top-down view, it's good for a project, but it is not necessarily the best for you to understand the property and understand how things are going to work together and really get the full picture. This is Roots of Resilience. Subscribe for more if this sounds interesting to you. I have 30 plus videos that I'm in the process of scripting and working through, so please follow along on my journey as I turn this half-acre plot in the desert into a thriving food forest ecosystem. Thank you. There's a lot of work to be done, and we're just getting started.